Welcome to Inside the Courtroom. This is Gigi. This episode of Inside the Courtroom is our assessment of the Jones versus Combs case. After observing all the activity that we could observe and get our hands on that was available to the public, we've suggested from the very beginning of this series that federal involvement is justified and would ultimately be the gauge for measuring the alleged crimes, as we've always believed the allegations were way bigger than the civil cases being levied against Sean Combs. We decided to follow Rodney Lil Rod Jones's complaint. He filed his complaint in early February 2024 in the Southern District of New York. This complaint has been amended several times since then. It was filed by Tyrone Blackburn and named several defendants along with Sean Combs. There are several defendants that have not been named as of yet. For the record, we must state that Sean Combs denies all allegations and none of the allegations have been proven to be true in a court of law as of yet. In episode 1, we told you that the lawyer, Tyrone Blackburn, was either purposely fumbling the ball or frankly just incompetent. Blackburn is Rodney Jones's lawyer. He's also the lawyer for the woman suing Christian Combs, Sean Combs' son. He's also the lawyer for several of the other women claiming charges against Sean Combs. We told you that Rodney Lil Rod Jones really did not have a binding contract with Sean Combs. Check this out. Throughout his time with Mr. Combs, Mr. Jones was under an implied work-for-hire agreement. Mr. Jones attempted to work with Mr. Combs to secure his publishing and royalty rights for the work he completed on the Love album. Mr. Combs only offered Mr. Jones $29,000 for 13 months, thousands of hours of work, and 9 songs that made it to the Love album. Ironically, Mr. Jones was willing to take $50,000, his publishing and royalties. Mr. Combs' self-serving greed would not allow him to pay Mr. Jones an additional $21,000. So back to Blackburn. In the second amended complaint, Blackburn changed the wording completely, alleging a completely different claim about the contractual agreement between Rodney Jones and Sean Combs. Look. Throughout his time with Mr. Combs, Mr. Jones was under an implied work-for-hire agreement. Let's go down. According to Mr. Jones, he was recruited by Frankie Santella to work on the Love album. Mr. Jones informed Mr. Santella that he required the following to work on the Love album: A, $20,000 per song, 4 royalty points, credit as producer and credited for each instrument Mr. Jones played, and Mr. Jones must retain his publishing rights. According to Mr. Jones, they agreed to the terms detailed above after meeting with Frankie Santella. Mr. Jones met with defendant Combs, who further reiterated and guaranteed that the above-mentioned terms were accepted. As a result, Mr. Jones began working on the album. This is different, very different from the first amended complaint. So different in the terms that you have to question the validity of these terms. Because if these terms were in place, like the second amended complaint said, why wouldn't it have been mentioned in the first? Why are the terms completely different? We also told you about Lucian Grange and how he would be dismissed from the case. We told you this in April of 2024, and sure enough, Lucian Grange and UMG Recordings Incorporated were dismissed from the case, just as Ethiopia Habtemariam had been dismissed previously. Again, the allegations about Lucian Grange changed from the first amended complaint to the second amended complaint. Look at this. According to Mr. Jones, whenever defendant Grange visited Mr. Combs at his house, it would be in the evening, and he and Mr. Combs would disappear for hours in Mr. Combs' bedroom. Defendant Grange sponsored and attended several Love album listening parties at Mr. Combs' home in Los Angeles, California. These parties were sponsored by defendants MR, LR, and UMG. As evidence above, these parties had sex workers and underage girls present. During these parties, defendant Grange knew or should have known that Mr. Combs was drugging the attendees through laced bottles of De Leon tequila and Ciroc vodka. So, in the second amended complaint, they continued to push this idea that UMG Recordings Incorporated and Lucian Grange had a partnership with Sean Combs. Now, mind you, none of those allegations that I just read in the first amended complaint were in the second amended complaint. None of the allegations, they were all taken out. However, they continue on with this quote partnership as a means again of affecting the Lucian Grange and UMG recordings. Like here, it says, according to the Haptomerium Declaration, as Motown Records chairwoman and CEO, she reported directly to defendant Lucian Grange. So they're continuing this theory, or trying to continue this theory, that they had a partnership, which they did not have a partnership. They had a contractual agreement, according to Zakarin. So on May the 10th, 2024, all of the allegations were dismissed. And so basically Blackburn conceded and basically said there was no basis for the claims and accusations he made against Lucian Grange, Motown Records, and UMG Recordings. And so that basically acknowledges that the First Amendment complaint was factually and legally baseless. So Blackburn has been accused of violating Rule 11. And if the federales are using any of the civil cases filed by Blackburn, that makes me very apprehensive about how strong the federal case is against Combs. We decided not to post anything about the public video of Sean Combs assaulting Cassandra Ventura or any of the lawsuits that followed Rodney Lil Rod Jones's case. We were interested in the validity of the allegations, not the details of the deviant sex acts, which thus far seems to be just that: deviant, drug-fueled sex acts, exposing not only Combs, but unfortunately also the accusers. The savagery of human trafficking and the urgency for real victims becomes diminished in public rhetoric. And it's a trigger phrase or word. And lawyers are really using this word to do just that, trigger you and me. In our observation, however, inside the courtroom would not identify any of the people being sued by Combs other than minors as being trafficked or kidnapped. Cassandra Ventura, for example, was with Sean Combs for a decade. Even after the brutal assault that we all saw on the video made public by CNN, Ventura stayed with Combs for 2 years after that video. Ventura is also said to have returned to the hotel on the night she was brutally assaulted by Combs after she had finally vacated the hotel and made it to her apartment, just for her to travel back to the hotel from her apartment. Fortunately, however, she was barred from entering the hotel again by security. Even after that, Ventura was also seen like days later with Combs at her movie premiere, Perfect Match. Rodney Jones stayed around after allegedly seeing a man be shot, after being drugged, after being assaulted by different celebrities, women and men, forced to partake in hiring sex workers, illegal in Florida, of course, and watching Combs' team lace bottles of alcohol with drugs to possible underage girls, to give to possible underage girls. But I'm going to tell you this, if Jones had been paid that $21,000, we wouldn't know anything about this case. In each of these cases, these victims had free will to leave. They chose to stay. Now, of course, there were several crimes committed. No one is saying that there were no crimes committed. There were plenty of crimes committed. I mean, you have abuse, you have battery, you have prostitution, you have illegal drugs, you have firearm and weapon possession, etc. But as far as we've seen through at least these civil complaints, it doesn't appear that any of these victims were trafficked. By the way, Christina Coram, remember her, the woman that was allegedly spiking bottles of alcohol, according to Rodney Jones. She has requested an extension for responding to these allegations, and an extension was granted. And so she has until August 26, 2024 to respond. This case will go on and on for a long time. So unless there's something worth reporting, we're going to wait for the federal charges, if any. So I have so many questions, so many unanswered questions in my notes. One of them is, how does a woman like Kola Booth, who claimed to be a sex slave for Osama bin Laden, the guy that was supposedly responsible for 9/11, How does a woman like that, Cola Booth, end up traveling in the same circles as Kim Porter, the mother of three of Sean Combs' children, Kimora Lee Simmons, Whitney Houston, and other high-profile celebrities? How does that happen? We also told you about a new lawyer that's involved in the case, but moving very quietly, Rodney Diggs, who is extremely handsome, by the way. But what is his purpose? When will he defend Lil Rod Jones publicly, so we can kind of gauge his character? The other question, or another question I have, is why wasn't this booby trap on the river raided? The allegations in Rodney Jones' complaint actually named this place, Booby Trap on the River, as the place where these underage workers and sex workers were purchased. Why didn't they raid this place along with Sean Combs' homes? I don't understand that. So this case is really starting to remind me of another case I followed some years ago, John Durham. John Durham was set out to take down the deep state as special counsel into the Russia investigation, and basically it was around Trump and his first election, but none of that stuff ever happened. And the people that were supposedly going to be put in jail, lock her up, were never touched, let alone arrested. In retrospect, it was all entertainment, false hope, you know? My hope is that this case is not just that, entertainment for the internet masses. Inevitably, while this case may go on for some time, Inside the Courtroom will only refer to this case if major rulings occur. Blackburn is now representing a woman who claims to have been assaulted by DJ Academics, also known as Livingston Allen. We have special interest in this Livingston Allen, also known as DJ Academics case, because this victim, Fauzia Abash, deserves better. I really wish she had chosen better representation. At this point, I think I could muster up a group of lawyers that could beat Blackburn and probably represent Abash successfully. I believe her story, and I see her as a true victim of trafficking. So let's see what we can find in that case. Until then, thanks for watching Inside the Courtroom. Like the video, share the video with a friend, and subscribe for more. This is Gigi. Have a great one. Peace.